Oh,
Yeah, we will. We're done though.
yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah. Very well done.
Martha's gonna discuss the MVP grant tonight. Who's gonna?
Yes, and Caitlin and Doug are here for that.
Okay.
And James. Probably James would start.
I mean, I know it hasn't been used for farming for 4 or 5 years. That's about all I know.
Okay.
Are you ready, Martha?
Move to open.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks for coming, everybody. I'd like to start out tonight in my chairman's report. I'm sure everyone's heard Frank Remley passed away. Longtime member of Finance Committee. Very nice gentleman. Someone I always look forward to talking to. A friendly face, helpful critic, and a huge help. And he was really instrumental behind the scenes, bringing our facility needs to the forefront, and also bringing Eric Svahn aboard as a real brain in our efforts to get these things done. And I will miss Frank, just a really, really good guy. And Mike, I know you had an announcement you wanted to make.
Tonight is the 52nd anniversary of Sergeant Donald Wilkinson's death in Vietnam. I just take a moment of silence because on his plaque it says, "Freedom's not free," and that really brings it home. He was the first member of Newbury, and like I said, he was a good friend. So, thank you.
Okay, I signed the PR 20-06 and PR 20-07 for Ellen Jamison. We have some, why don't we hop to, since we have folks here waiting for the MVP grant application. Who wants to kick that off? I don't see why we can't start with that, so some of you folks can go home.
All right. Caitlin Shaw's here to talk a little bit about it. It's basically a grant. We got a culvert on Orchard Street down by Martin Burns. It's an old stone culvert. There's no guardrails. It, floods over there. Even in the wintertime, it's icy. You know what I mean? It's a pretty big drop off. So she has a grant that she thinks we might qualify for. It's like, 25% match, I believe. But, be a good opportunity to get that. It's probably one of our bigger projects left to take care of. Yeah.
So I'm Caitlin Shaw. I work for the Ipswich River Watershed Association. I'm the restoration manager. And we've been working with the coastal towns for a mass-based barrier mitigation project. We approached the town of Newbury to see what culverts they might want to do some work on. And because this is tidally influenced, it can't be funded through the DER's Culvert Replacement Municipal Assistance Grant Program, which only funds the non-tidal right now. So because you are an MVP community, there is the possibility of submitting an application for the MVP action grants for this culvert replacement. We've spoken to the engineering firm, Gill Engineering, that the town uses, and the initial total project cost was around $93,000. It might be a little bit more, maybe $100,000, and this would cover the surveying, and engineering and design, and then the match would be suggested to be provided by the town through the permitting process. And that match is 25%, as James said. And so we are looking to basically move forward with producing the application and submitting it by November 15th. And the ask tonight would be to have your approval in submitting this application as the town of Newbury, and also to have Tracy, sign the, cover letter of the application when it needs to be submitted.
Okay. Any question or discussions from the board?
From what I was submitted in the packet, do you think the culvert is going to be substantially larger than the current one? Do you have a sense of how big, or is that something we'll wait on engineering for?
I suspect that it would be a bridge.
A full
You know, a
bridge?
small bridge,
Okay.
yeah. So, in terms of permitting, we will work with the engineer to determine what, basically what this first 2-year grant would look like, because these tidal, structures are a little bit more complex than the
Yeah.
non-tidal ones. And they do have a little bit more hydraulic and, hydrology, survey work that needs to be done. So, it likely will become a bridge, and which means that if the span, is over 10 feet, that it would have to go through permitting through Mass DOT. So we will be aware of all of those constraints when developing this application, and consider how long it might take for all of those aspects to take place.
Now, after that all is accomplished, where do we go for funding to build it?
So once the, a good project is developed and we get to the, 100% or even maybe 90%, design plans for the site, it is much, well, there will be other rounds of action grants, so, we can go back to the MVP action grant program for the construction costs. And by that time, because it does take a little while for the work to be done and for the permitting to be done, I am working with DER to look at some of these tidal sites, so who knows if maybe in the future, the DER CRMA program might be covering tidal sites down the line in the future. But, this would probably be, submitted through the MVP program again for the construction costs.
Is there any possibility, James mentioned there's no guardrails, that there, as a bridge, they would have, a raised sidewalk or something like that, so that runners, bikers, etc. Is that something that would be considered, or is that something that's standard?
I'm not positive whether, that is a requirement, but as part of the project, we could definitely, add that to what we're looking for when it gets to that point. After the survey work is done, we can add something along the lines of having a raised sidewalk and guardrails to be part of that. If it's a bridge,
Yeah,
guardrails
would be
are definitely,
But that's a good idea,
but
that
they're
would be the
raised.
time.
Well, that's what I was thinking. If we're making changes there, I mean, it's not the tightest spot on any of our roads, but it's not expansive. And, both Triton and GDA run there, so it's at least worth looking at.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and we can definitely talk to the engineers about including the, anything that the town would be interested in including in the construction plans.
Do you think it'll, I don't know if you can answer this question, but do you think it will be over 10 feet, the bridge?
I think it is now.
It is
Already.
now?
Doug?
I think it's gonna be. If you take a look at the pools on either side of that bridge, you'll see that it's a restriction. So the water goes through there, does this kind of thing, and that's why you see those big round pools on either side of it.
Okay.
It's probably close to 10 feet wide now, and it's not working. So my guess is it would be well over 10 feet.
And I've met with, I bet no exaggeration, 15 people trying for different grants in the last 4 years, and everybody's come to the same conclusion that it's probably gonna end up being a bridge.
Okay.
It's just, with the new
With the new
requirements.
stream crossing requirements, it's gonna push it to that.
To that size.
Yes.
Yeah, also the, upstream and downstream channel widths are bigger than 10 feet. They're wider than 10 feet, so that's a good indication that it'll probably be, bigger than that
Okay.
expanse.
If you look at what they did out to, like, by Bob Colby's on the corner, out to, what is it, quick, I can't think of what it is.
Ken's Island?
Ken's Island, if you look at what they did there, that's a pretty significant bridge for what used to be a culvert.
Mhm.
So the requirements have changed. My only concern is when everything's done and the engineering's done, does it put us on a fast track for the town to have to like pay a lot of money into this process, or is it gonna be taken care of by funding from other sources?
Actually, having the engineering complete will put us
Yeah.
in a better position
Yeah.
should the grant funding round become available, yeah.
Yeah, there is that 25% match, and James and I talked about it. For the construction, that's a little bit easier because the DPW can fill in with a good amount of that. And then for this first phase, usually the conservation agent is able to help out with the permitting, or the town can put money forward.
I'm more worried about the construction phase, so.
Is it
And I'm the one for reducing title restrictions, obviously, environmentally speaking, but it also could become a $2 million bridge real fast.
Well, my question, that's one of my questions, is it gonna be, is it a match, dollar match, or can it be in like kind?
It can be in kind
In
or
kind.
cash, yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I did call and try to understand whether we would probably want to be like a project manager so that we could coordinate the kind of community outreach in that aspect, because MVP really likes that community outreach and engagement in terms of these projects, because these projects are only gonna get more frequent as we kind of see sea level rise. So this is a really good kind of pilot project, and it would I think that it would be very desirable for MVP to fund something like this. But unfortunately, we were not able as a nonprofit to provide in-kind match.
Right.
They said that
Which
would
is
be
why
like
you're here.
doubling up. Yeah. So we would have to basically do something, have something internal as somebody within the town doing something, or the town paying out that, the funds for that 25% portion of the project.
Doug, did you have anything you wanted to add since you're here?
I don't, not at this point. This is our next step, and I think it's good to get in early. There's going to be a time when these projects get very competitive. I'd like to get in early, get some of the early funds, because Lord knows what's gonna happen when everybody's applying for them. It's gonna dry up quick.
I think a lot of people are just finishing their MVP planning process, and then they're kind of not sure where, like, what next step to take, and these types of projects, that were identified in the planning step are a perfect opportunity, and as Doug said, I think it's a great time to just jump right in and try to target this funding source.
Oh, I move that we go forward with the grant application and make sure you see the signing authority.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for
and
bringing
your
that to us.
dedication and time. All right, and we'll knock off one more thing quickly here. We have an appointment to the police department. Michael Neri, Special Police Officer, October 8th, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. Any comments you want to make, Chief Riley?
Mike Neri is a former reserve officer for the police department. He was full-time police officer in Peabody for years. He left us as a reserve just to focus on Peabody. It was getting too cumbersome doing both. He's retired from Peabody. He's looking to become a special here, so he'd be eligible for special town events or details. He's not going to be on patrol or anything like that. We do that with Roger Mary as well, another retired police officer, police chief. And, that's it. He's a good man. And he'll be welcome addition out on the road.
Motion to appoint?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, new business. We have a 2019 business license renewal. Bridge Road Signs, care of Richard Samonson, 9 Graham Ave, general business.
I have to recuse myself from this one because it's a neighbor.
Motion to grant the license?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, you can come back.
Thank you.
All right, so we might as well jump into 277 High Road, Chapter 61A, Notice of Intent to Sell. Is anyone here?
Talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
So we got the notice of intent to sell on September 12th. We have 30 days within which to review the notice and determine whether it's sufficient or not. Town council has gone through it, and I've gone through it, and it appears to be sufficient, have all the required information. So the next step would be to schedule a public hearing. Because the town has basically three options. One is to exercise its right of first refusal to acquire the parcel, to vote to assign its right to another nonprofit such as Essex County Greenbelt or the trustees, or to waive its right of first refusal. So council has recommended that standard practice is to hold a public hearing. The town has 120 days within which to make that determination. If that passes and no determination has been made, basically, kind of waive the right. And Ellen, I think we decided it was like January 10th is the final day of that 120 days. What I don't know, the Mass General Law, the Chapter 61A provision refers to notice procedure which has been repealed, and I'm waiting for word from Lisa actually on what the notice procedure is. From what I've been able to find, it doesn't seem like it's anything more than posting a meeting. But it would be good to get a date set for the public hearing, and then I can distribute the notice of intent to sell to all the town boards and committees, as well as to Essex County Greenbelt.
The hearing, would it be Board of Selectmen or also planning?
No, it'd be Board of Selectmen,
Okay.
because you guys have the authority.
Okay.
So we would want, you said we have 120 days and that ends,
January 10th.
so would we want to do it at the,
Maybe the meeting after next?
Well,
I was thinking give it till December so that we have, everyone can give their input. So maybe our first meeting in December.
That's
did
workable
you
given
want
the
to
deadlines.
wait till you hear back from Lisa?
I think that's fine. That would certainly give us time for noticing. Even if it had to be done 2 weeks within 14 days or something, that would be
Martha, I remember this had to go to land court, right?
It went to court, but it was, it's an issue that's been
Resolved.
resolved.
Was part of that issue the fact that the main house became non-conforming as a lot?
When the lot lines were changed, our position was that the structures became non-conforming because they don't meet the strict front yard setbacks.
And that's been proven to be not the case?
That actually isn't what was, the determination wasn't actually based on that. That issue wasn't addressed. It was based on a footnote in our dimensional requirements.
But anything we're doing with a 61A doesn't make the house
Yeah, it
more
has no
non-conforming.
impact.
Then I'm
It's totally separate.
So you want to make this the public hearing in November?
December.
December.
This, whatever, December 10th at 7:15?
I move we schedule a public hearing for December 10th at 7:15 p.m.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you. So I'll get that out to everybody.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if we can answer it before the public hearing, but.
No, that's fine. One of the neighbors, one of the two abutters in the back, there was a third in the front, she couldn't come, nor could the person in the back. Oh, okay. Are you across the street?
No, back of my property.
Yeah.
Can you folks just stand up and state your name so it'd be on record?
Bruce Webster.
Okay.
26 Cottage.
All right, nice to meet you, Bruce.
We're gonna have any time to comment?
And I know your name, but can you just state your name? Thank you.
Are we gonna have a chance to say anything?
At the public hearing.
No, I mean, really? I can't just bring up the topic.
You can, I just don't know if we can get into substantial, now that we've set a public hearing.
All you have to do is listen.
Yeah, if you want to talk for a minute, that's fine, but
Do it now or should I do it?
Let Bruce first. Yeah, 'cause
Oh, I'm
he's
sorry.
still-
Yeah. And I just, so you both understand, we really can't get into,
I understand that.
Okay.
I have a question.
some people don't, so.
I have a question concerning procedural.
Okay,
Okay, because I didn't receive an email, quote unquote, notification that 277 was gonna be discussed at this meeting. The email that came for your Board of Selectmen stuff had nothing in there. I found out about it from my neighbor out back.
It's on the agenda.
It was posted on the agenda,
I didn't receive it in my email.
the agenda.
Yes, that's correct.
Huh.
All it said, when I clicked on go for additional, okay, it just said something about, this is what's gonna happen, and then there wasn't anything in there. You know, it's like, you have, pledge allegiance to flag, adjournment, and blah, 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 everything was true. But there wasn't any specifics about 277, which I thought was kind of weird. Then I clicked on the calendar to confirm with my neighbor, and that's when I got this. No, it's just a concern, okay? As far as what's happening with the property, okay, as far as the overall design and such, and what the the frontages are and everything else. You mentioned that we're having the possibility that the town can exercise its right.
That's one of the options, yeah.
Okay, that's the first I've heard of that too, aside from in the, not to mention the deed, but in the documents of the house.
It's
That's why I didn't.
customary procedure for land coming out of 61A.
61A,
Yeah.
right. Is there a reason why the town wouldn't want to make it an open space? Being that it is a 1700s house, is one of my questions.
The house is actually not included in the 61A property.
Okay.
That's separate, so there are about 5.594 acres that are in 61A. The house is excluded from that, so the house isn't even part of the discussion for the public hearing or the right of first refusal. It's just the land that's in chapter F right now.
The house property is 1.54, the whole property is 6.5.
Right, and a little bit of the 61A property encroaches on the new lot that contains the house, just a little bit. So, you know, what we.
Is on the drawings, just to let you guys know, there was a family cemetery on the plot. In the back. I remember seeing the headstones. And they were in a fenced off area. It's not shown on the map. What's also not shown on the map is the well with the windmill. It's out there. So where all of these things are not on these maps that we're looking at. Just thought.
Yep, good to know.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Lon?
let me just hand you these things. Lon Huck by 6281 High Road.
Thank you.
So I've been kind of following this thing. I didn't go to the auction or anything like that, but it was my impression that, well, I've been talking to Grace Connolly as everything's been developing. And it was my impression that the property was gonna be broken up into the lots in the 61 area. But that the house itself and the barns and all the structures that are part of that was going to be on a lot. That was their intent, the trustees, according to Grace. She said she was gonna make sure that happened. So, again, I don't know what the actual bid document looked like when it came out. But I thought that was still one property. And then I found out last week, you sent me an email, but same thing, some neighbors told me, oh, they're splitting up the property that the Plummer Homestead's on to make 2 lots out of that. And they're gonna turn that 250-year-old barn into one of these $1.5 million mansions. Like we've got 2 other barns in there that have been destroyed. So basically our group, I mean, people that I've been talking to, we weren't as concerned about the stuff you are, which is, we figured you weren't gonna win that battle, that the property's gonna be broken up just because of its building blocks. But that the Plummer property itself wasn't enough to make 2 lots out of it. So basically we've got something here, like Francis Plummer landed, he got off the boat, you know, you understand that.
Mhm.
In 1635, that family's had that property, the house has been there since around 1750. With the barns, and that's the cornerstone on the northeast corner of the green. And we're gonna split that up and turn, and I've got pictures in that package that show you what the view from the green, from this, looking out the windows, the house is sitting right there.
And if you wanna look, I'm gonna put together some more stuff. But, the view out of there, you've seen the other barns, the bushy barn, what that looks like now. I mean, that's a house or somebody living there permanently now. And then the other barn that's just down, it's a 253, I think, High Road, that the Historic Commission approved making minor modifications for us so we could have an office there, sold for $1.2 million. And I hope there's still something that can be done. Now that the prospective, the successful bidder, apparently has made a change in what the drawings look like when the bid occurred, right? So he must have taken some property out of the agricultural area to make that lot large enough to have two houses on it.
Yeah.
Or is he asking for a variance for under 40,000 square feet?
He hasn't come before the planning board for anything
Okay.
yet. I just found out about it last week, but
Yeah.
that's his intention, but it's gonna happen.
So is there well, I guess I said I couldn't ask any questions. But what I'm afraid of is now this won't even come up in the hearing because it's the front property.
There'll be public, plenty of opportunity for public questions, input, and hopefully some type of presentation during the hearing. And normally,
In the plan.
For the front lot also?
that, I don't know if there are any changes to the structures on the front lot. And again, we can't get,
Cut the property in half.
the best time for the questions is during the public hearing, because we cannot get into legally cannot get into substantial discussion about this since we've set a public hearing.
Lon, I think it's gonna be before the planning board.
Well, the division of the property would be, if there's gonna be any change to the lot lines that were established through that original 6-lot plan, that's gonna have to come before the planning board.
How do I get on a list so that I get notified?
If you sign up on the website, for the planning board
Okay.
agendas,
Okay, so just.
And also,
what-
generally, how often do abutters notices go out for public hearings like this? This would include abutters being notified?
this doesn't,
Doesn't fall under that?
yeah, it doesn't fall under that, and the A&R process for the lot division doesn't fall under that either, unless they were creating a road, which they're not. If it has the frontage, on a public way, an existing public way, or a way that's used as a public way, then doesn't have a public hearing.
So I have a question. Are there any modifications or changes gonna be made to the Plummer house? Or just the lot lines are gonna change?
What I was told is that the house itself is gonna be restored. The person who has made the offer on the property wants to convert the barn into a residence and may relocate it on the lot.
Would that have to go before the historical commission first?
If they require a demolition permit.
That's the only way it goes before the
That's the only
historical
way we see
commission.
it, and sometimes they don't.
Is the barn being moved, Martha? Are they talking about the barn being moved or the lot line going between the house and the barn?
Well, it would go between the house and the barn, and then I think the barn would be moved back away from the street and probably enough to give the
Well, that
side
would
yard.
require a demolition permit.
I'm just wondering how the house remains conforming. Has it got enough property, 40,000, whatever? I mean,
That's what we have to look at. I mean, it's a
Well-
little over 2 acres now.
If it's only an acre and a half, it sounds like they're gonna eat into the wild area there, and move the fence, move the stone wall over, I guess.
Yeah, I was told that another engineer has looked at the lot lines that were on the plan that was approved before, so they may all be tweaked to get more area for that, I don't know.
Yeah, there was enough property there to do this.
Yeah, and,
But now you're changing the historic significance as far as I can see. Taking field and putting a house on it's one thing.
one thing I'd like to add, CPA has come up a few times in this town and has generally not been looked at favorably by Newbury. But West Newbury has been able to preserve many fabulous properties, structures, community projects by adopting the Community Preservation Act. I am a proponent of the Community Preservation Act. And those funds where people feel like it's a little fraction of our tax dollar, it isn't going towards anything, and they just plain don't want to pay it. When something like this all of a sudden comes up, that would be a useful bank account for the town to acquire a historically important or agriculturally important parcel, and we lack that capability right now since we have not adopted CPA.
How do we, there's no opportunity to buy it to stop it.
It's still
No.
opportunity,
Is that what you're saying?
I think, but but I mean, JR's totally right, Newburyport the same way. In the beginning, when I was selectman in past terms, we tried to get CPA through, remember, Martha?
Mm.
And I think it was like 100%, wasn't it? Reimbursement or match?
More.
Originally it was.
It was
Yeah,
more
so
than
way back then,
100%.
it was 100% on what you spent, you got back.
Hmm.
And we couldn't get it through our town.
Right. No, nobody wanted it. So
So-
it's concerning, and I'm not gonna comment on this project until we have the hearing, but the bushy barn on Newman Road, it kinda broke my heart.
Yeah.
So I know where you're coming from.
No, we watched the Newman farm go away, and we've watched the building over there by the Spencer Little Farm go away, and now they're moving.
Yeah.
After tearing the house down.
Yeah, a lot of good that was, right?
Anyway, this would be just a travesty if we had one of those barns on the green. I mean, the year after I moved here, we raised $500,000 and bought 4 acres for Greenbelt from the, what's his name? Amani's property there. We got 4 acres, so at least it protected the edge, the boundary of the green. And this is the northeast cornerstone of the green. And on a scenic byway. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Worse.
Thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Lon.
If anybody has any ideas, I can get a mass of people to go fight this. I just don't know what to do.
All right, this is Millennium's drawing that was presented to me at the open house from the Realtor.
I haven't even seen that.
You haven't, because it says approved by blah, blah, blah in the upper right-hand corner. He touted it
Oh,
as,
yeah, okay, yeah, this is,
okay,
yeah, I thought this was showing a lot line down there.
no, this is with the one that we put, 5 acres. Okay, so what you're saying to me now is that the information that the town has, the town planning office has, is that this is changing?
That's what I've been told, that this front lot one is going to be divided, that's what the developer would like to do.
Then these 2 pieces of property have to maintain a minimum of 40,000 square feet.
And have 125 feet of frontage.
Right.
That was my question.
Yeah.
So we're gonna
Because-
find out, yeah.
Yeah, are you familiar with that?
No, but that's my question too.
Right.
If you
Because-
make it more non-conforming, I don't know how you can do it. That's probably what he's gonna do.
But you can't move those lines over because there's 125 foot road frontage,
Well,
unless they go at an angle,
depends on, I don't know how much there is to spare.
because this design has it 125 feet, and that's the minimum requirement.
Has our engineer looked at it, Martha?
He hasn't, I mean, this one was pretty straightforward. If we
Okay.
get something else, we may need to take a closer look at it.
The other thing this shows is that the front of that barn is the property line.
Yeah.
In that corner,
The road moved.
okay, the corner should be looked at from the DPW standpoint as to be trimmed back so that the people coming out of, the road has a clearer access. Point of view, going either way.
I mean, what Lon's talking about is in our town, and it happens in many other towns all around us now. I mean, I think you're the only guys that are restoring a barn perfectly, aren't you?
Yeah.
So everyone else now is taking their old barns and making them into something else. So it is pretty wild. Like I said, I think the Jespersons are the only one that are putting a lot of money into keeping the barn the way it was.
There you go. The other town that I have firsthand knowledge on is what Raleigh's been doing as far as saving land and such. I'll be talking with my friend this week. Todd Farm.
Mhm.
And so Frank, Todd and I, I'll talk and see what avenues he can put
Bring
forward to
forward,
us too. Because he did a whole bunch for the lands that were Girl Scout camp, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
And they obtained that for the town at a real small amount, so.
Okay,
Other than the 2 lots done with the cemetery, I heard he has a bid for $800,000.
He's a bit for 800.
Where? The two near the cemetery, the 2 lots in your garage.
Oh, okay. The 2 lots, there's 6 lots.
No, but the two.
5,
of them, they said a bid for 800.
lot 5 and 6.
Sorry.
We should probably move on to another topic, because
No.
we can't delve into,
I just wanted to know.
Okay.
I like you guys.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Code of Ethics application is appropriate. So, this is to improve an enforcement process for our Code of Ethics. A lot of our policies in town, when push comes to shove, have no teeth, and that's something I feel we need to work on in this town. So I'm gonna run through this and then take questions from the board. Code of Ethics Select Board Enforcement Process. Once a chair or other member of the Board of Selectmen is aware that a fellow member has violated the Code of Ethics, in parentheses, code, that member shall notify the chair in writing. Such notice must include a sufficiently detailed factual statement of the underlying conduct and the specific provisions of the code the member is alleged to have violated. Upon receipt of such notice, the chair shall, at his or her earliest convenience, investigate further to determine, 1, whether the alleged conduct can be substantiated, and if so, 2, whether such conduct appears to have violated the code. Before making any of the foregoing determinations, the member being accused of violating the code will be given an opportunity to present to the chair any exculpatory evidence and otherwise defend him or herself against the allegations. If the chair determines that there is sufficient basis upon which to determine that a member has violated the code and the board could so reasonably find, the chair shall report said findings to the board. After notice is given to the member who has allegedly violated the code, the chair shall place the matter on the agenda to be discussed by the board. The board shall determine, following consideration of the evidence presented by the chair and information received and/or presented by the member, that 1, whether the alleged conduct is substantiated by the evidence presented, and if so, 2, whether such conduct violated the code, and if so, 3, which of the 3 penalties set forth in section 17 of the code will be imposed. And I'm going to skip to section 17 of the code. Town of Newbury Code of Ethics expresses standards of conduct expected of members of the town's, just make sure I'm in the right section. I am. The Town of Newbury Code of Ethics expresses standards of conduct expected of members of the town's Board of Selectmen. Members themselves have the primary responsibility for ensuring that ethical standards are understood and met, and that the public can continue to have full confidence in the integrity of government. The chair has a responsibility for intervening when actions of members appear to be in violation of this Code of Ethics. In instances where the chair appears to be in violation of the Code of Ethics, any remaining Board of Selectmen member may intervene. In addition to any other penalties or remedies as may be provided by law, the Board of Selectmen may intervene in council members whose conduct does not comply with the town's ethical standards. When a member violation is apparent as prescribed in this Code of Ethics, the actions taken may range from a letter of reprimand from the board, to a censure, to a request for resignation from the elected position. All penalties shall require a majority vote of the Board of Selectmen before being imposed upon the member, determined to be in violation. A violation of this Code of Ethics shall not be considered a basis for challenging the validity of a Board of Selectmen decision, but may be used as a basis for the board to reconsider its decision. Each of the foregoing determinations shall require a majority vote of the board. The board may thereafter determine that the penalties set forth in section 17 of the code shall be imposed as follows. The penalty shall be reduced to a writing that consists of A, sufficiently detailed factual statement of the underlying conduct, B, an explanation of how the board substantiated such conduct, C, an explanation of how by engaging in such conduct the member violated the code, and D, an explanation as to why the penalty is appropriate. The writing, once approved by a majority vote and signed by the chair, if the chair is the member at issue, if the chair is the member at issue, another member of the board shall be read to the violating member by the board. So, any discussion on adopting the enforcement process?
I move that we adopt the enforcement process.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Can we strike the last word in the sentence? I think it's a typo.
Which
That
sentence?
is,
the typo? Yeah,
The last and?
the last
Yeah.
and, yeah.
Yes. And put a period rather than a semicolon.
Yeah.
Any
Do
other,
we, do we need to vote on that?
yeah, well, that's the idea.
No, vote on that change, that
Oh.
amendment?
I think that
No, I think that's just
typo.
typo.
Yeah, think
Yeah,
it's all right?
you can vote it with the change.
Okay.
Yeah, so when,
So I move that we accept this with the change, with the edit.
second,
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
administrator?
Yeah, I think we have Mrs. Went in the back there. I'd just like to
Oh, yeah.
get it so she can go home and have dinner at some point. Under old business, request time extension for public property use / special permit, Tyler Went Boy Scout Eagle Project at Manta Field Central Street on the path over the wetland area between Triton Middle School and Triton High School, originally approved Sunday, September 15th, originally approved from Sunday, September 15th, 2019 through Sunday, September 29th, 2019.
It's definitely taking longer for us to get the materials. We did hear from one of the lumber companies today, which they are donating all the planking.
Nice.
Yes.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, we would like to extend to possibly November 29th, because the way it's going, I wanna make sure I have enough time to
Yeah.
not
Right.
have to do it again.
We don't wanna have to keep coming back here.
Yeah.
And you've had no rain in the process to make it harder.
No.
It seems to have gotten pretty rainy.
Yeah,
Oh, especially with the rain that we're getting this weekend.
Yeah.
There's nothing about disturbing marshland or violations will be in there, is there?
Not that I know of, because things are actually going to sleep, which is kinda good.
Okay.
Otherwise Doug might, if there is, he can, you know, pretty good when things go to sleep.
Yeah, that's what I figured. But yeah, I move that we approve the request, provided that there's no issues with the Conservation Commission.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Forward to it.
Let's see. Now we have a vote to approve proposed food truck regulations and food truck application. This was tabled from 8/27/19. Has everyone had a chance to review the proposed food truck regulations?
I still think we should, and we could do this at a later date, because it's not a bylaw, but I think we need to include a way for the licensee to adjust their hours with our approval, because right now we can adjust their hours, but they can't. Beyond that, I think everything else looks pretty good. So, but I don't know how anyone else feels about that.
Any other thoughts?
Well, can you wanna extend the hours? Can you explain that? What do you mean?
So, right now in section 10, the last section, the board may modify a mobile food vendor's license, including any approved locations, at any time before the issuance of a license, or 2, if after issuance of license for cause. There's all this language about how we can change the times and locations that a food vendor can use, especially if they're not using a time, but there's no way for the licensee to adjust their own time. So let's say they set up at Manterfield, and there's a cancellation of a game. They're still supposed to go there because they don't have the ability to amend their times and things like that. It's some of the strictures in the provision I think are too strict. And or, you know, if they start going to Little League games and nobody buys anything and they want to stop going to Little League games, they'd have to apply for a whole new license. And I don't think that makes any sense. So I think they can just say, look, we don't sell anything at Little League games. We're not going to show up anymore, and give us notice rather than getting a new license.
That's almost different than just time. And it was also something I was thinking about, not that we're gonna have 4 trucks probably ever all at once vying for the same route.
Yep.
but who, would it be the police or, I mean, who's
Well,
gonna
that's my
mitigate
question.
that
Who's
process?
gonna manage this?
Because that could be a little above our pay grade to understand all that.
I still think the Board of Health, should be more involved, okay?
Oh, the Board of Health definitely is involved with,
Just a different level.
with their public health, but this is regulations. It's,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, this
beyond the
is-
scope of
this-
the Board of Health.
The street use.
Right.
So I think what we should probably do tonight is adopt the policy and then continue to revise it to make it work better. Because right now we have nothing.
I think what you said, though, would be more finely tuned up if there was kind of like a first come, first served basis, so there's no duplication in the root of the times.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of what we'd be reviewing when we approved any given license.
So who's the licensing authority now when we have business licenses, Tracy? The town clerk. So this is gonna go to the town clerk?
It goes to the town clerk and then it comes to you.
Us,
for
comes to us.
Just like we do other business
Yeah.
licenses, this will be the same
Yeah.
way.
But for these, we have a schedule, hours of operations, location of operations is all required to be laid out. So let's say the Rusty Can, who has a food truck, would apply for a license to run that in town, and they'd tell us where. The other thing that I think we probably want to do is put in a distinction between an ongoing thing like a ice cream truck, which will come through on a regular route and do things regularly, versus a 1 day or an event type license where there's something at Mantor Field or there is a special event happening that's a one-off, because I think the license should probably be different for those two things.
Damon, it's my understanding that that's where the Board of Health comes in. That's
For the
an issue,
one-off?
Yeah, for the 1 day special events.
Okay.
The only place I get a little is, we're gonna need like Mike's help to determine if it would really be a hazard to let, as we look at their routes, you know, to let that truck stop at that, corner, let's say.
Mhm.
So,
Well,
and it's in here.
He's in there that he
you
gets
know,
to review it,
yeah.
and DPW.
More work, Mike.
No audio, no visual again. Gotta stop.
So leave us with the task in your motion, to make
So-
a decision
Yeah,
about what.
So I have another question.
Okay.
What happens when we have somebody down at Mantorfield, like the Triton Youth Soccer or something, and they have their own,
Tables?
yeah, they selling
tables.
food down there, and then the food truck shows up?
Well,
Who's
I
gonna
think
manage
if
that?
the rec committee has issued a food license, then they could ask us not to allow food trucks during the time that they've issued their food license. Because the rec committee knows what's going on, knows that people are using the kitchen there per their regulations, which we approved last year. So if they have something going on and they don't, you know, if it's a fundraiser and a food truck would be competition, then I think it's incumbent on them to say, we don't want other people here. And then it's within our purview under this regulation to say, you can't be there.
So somebody's gonna have to keep their eye on that to
Well,
make
part
sure
of
that
what-
And I
those.
think we'd also wanna check with council about a provision like that.
And
If we can
part of
legally
what's
do
hap-
that.
Part of what's happening, Alicia, is to answer your question. If we didn't have this, that could occur.
Right.
Yeah, right now, it's open, our roads are open essentially.
Right.
So I think, you know, I think it's incumbent to adopt the regulation and then work on fine tuning it.
I agree with that. It's like,
We could either do that or table it again, because it is getting to be winter and smells perfectly with what we wanna do. But that, I'm good either way.
Well, and then are we gonna decide right now on what the fee is and all that other stuff?
no, we can fine tune that.
Yeah, but then what happens if somebody wants to come before us with a for a food truck and we don't have a fee, we haven't voted on a fee and then,
There was a food truck that just got up and running in town.
yeah, but they don't need to come before us yet.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I kinda wanna, I'm more comfortable with getting it spiffy and all ready to go the right way it should be.
Make a motion.
I move that we table this to
The next
think
meeting.
about
Next
it
meeting,
to the next meeting.
and I don't have a problem with that, I second it.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Uh,
Aye. So I'll make sure we really
Yeah.
drill down into that again and come up with any questions like that, because I hadn't thought of that scenario.
Yeah, and not a big fan. Okay.
Find my notes.
Moving right
You
along.
know, it's important though, cause you gotta remember, someone's going out with a significant investment in a food truck.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're
It's
going
somebody's
out as a
business.
part of their business.
Right.
And we, you know, we should do our best before we get it out there, and the reason that we're doing it is to make it easier on everyone involved for the food truck to prosper.
You ready for administrator's report, or do you need a minute?
I'm ready. Just wanted to let you know, special town meeting is scheduled for November 12th. Working on the draft warrant now, putting the various pieces together. We're gonna obviously be addressing potentially the police station funding, the Plum Island bathroom. There'll be some minor appropriation adjustments, an unpaid bill, and a couple of capital purchases. Attorney Larry Murphy spent a great deal of time working as part of the senior rebate program to review all of Newbury's bylaws in an attempt to find all the conflicting issues. He completed that task, which was amazing. Lisa has it now. Her recommendation is we make the changes in two components. At the special town meeting, we're gonna address anything that has has identified as minor issues, and then we would address the bigger issues in the spring at the annual town meeting. So, yay, that's only
That's
took
huge.
8
Hoping
years
that
and,
would
and
happen
Larry
for
Murphy to get it done for us, so
Serious stuff.
big shout out to him for that, cause it's been on the agenda for a long time. We have, actually, I wanted to ask you for a fee waiver request. The town has historically waived the fee for the Audubon employee parking permit that we grant to them annually. So with your approval, it would be issued to Dana Nunagoff. I think that's how you say her name. So
And these are the volunteer plover
it's
monitors.
just one permit for the plover monitors. So.
I move that we waive the parking fee for Dana.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The property auction, I don't know, I know we've talked about it, but I don't think we've met since it occurred. We did sell 16 of the 19 properties that were offered for sale. We brought in a total of $848,000. The top seller was what we anticipated, which was 19 Independence Way, and that sold for $420,000. There were over 100 people here. Diane Doyle did a really nice job in organizing the whole event. The feedback from many of the participants was very positive. I think everyone really enjoyed themselves. The auctioneer made it fun.
Yeah, he was a funny guy,
He
and
was a funny guy.
I couldn't believe the turnout. They
Yeah.
were lying down the stairs.
Yeah,
Really?
we were all,
Yep.
all surprised. Yeah,
So
by
which
how many
3
people.
parcels remain?
There were, I don't know off the top of my head. One of them, though, is, I can't pull the addresses off the top of my head, but one of them, the Fish and Wildlife is interested in purchasing, so we're working with them.
That must have been the
one
off
in-
95.
No, it was in,
Different one?
it's in the middle, it's a landlocked parcel, and it's all Fish and Wildlife all around it.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it was. It's in Martin Burns, but I don't remember how we identified it in the off 95 was one of the other
Right.
parcels, and then the very small parcel right here on Kent Way. Those didn't sell, so we'll package them when we have some others that we identified as town owned. A few that were voted at town meeting to be sold when the town embarked upon the land sales
project. Some of those didn't sell either, so we may put them all together and package them up for another auction sometime in the future. Let's see, the bond sale, we sold our bonds last week. What we had projected for a 4 to 5% interest rate actually came in at 2.4957%. So that's translating into approximately $215,000 savings over the life of the bonds.
Amazing.
So more good news, and that is directly related to the difference between our prior rating and our AAA rating.
And that financial practice is being able to save us almost $250,000. Pretty darn good.
Yep, wow, right off the top. I received plans today from Vesta Architecture for the construction drawings for the Plum Island bathroom. You're aware that we had hoped to get about $350,000. We got $40,000. So I will be preparing an article for the town meeting to move that forward. James is getting some cost estimates now that we've got the construction drawings. And also just wanted to let you know that during the construction, the public safety police building, we're going to have some changes in the elections. So Deputy Chief Lucy and Chief Janvern have worked to kind of change the traffic flow in that area on Morgan Ave Morgan Ave during the construction, because we won't have the same parking capacity that we would normally have. So they'll probably be making that a one-way through that area on the election day, during the election. So that is under review. And the only other issue is the landfill solar project. Do you want to give us an update on that?
Yeah, just a quick update. We've been, James and I have both been contacted by somebody from Ace Solar, this guy Dale Myers. They're going to actually be starting the survey work and the wetland flagging out there this week. And the flagging should take a few days of time. The survey will take about 7 days of field work to complete the survey, because the topo's a little interesting out there. So anyway, it's good news that the project is actually moving forward, and I'll keep you all posted.
Longest project in municipal history.
It'll be a relief to see solar used in the proper place on a brownfield.
Yes.
I'm excited to see that.
Can I get a copy of where we are with that?
Where we are with what?
The landfill solar project, I haven't seen anything about that.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just because it goes way back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yep.
Just to be updated.
Okay, anything else in your report? All right, thank you. We have a letter, actually, let's get into citizens' concerns, in case anyone's waiting. Any citizens' concerns tonight? Okay. Evelyn?
Just have a concern about code of ethics. I still have that concern. I turn on the news and I see divisiveness between political parties, and I can turn the TV on, but I'm worried about it being a problem with the Board of Selectmen. And I just feel that each time you come up with something, it's more dramatic. It doesn't feel like friendly fire.
Well,
I don't follow.
Can I say something?
Sure.
The intent of the Code of Ethics is to make it more friendly fire. It's not to make it divisive at all. Everything in the Code of Ethics pretty much is, we're legally bound to do that anyways. And its intent is to make government more transparent and more of a democracy. I don't see how it could be taken another way. And if you see that, I'd really like to know how you see it.
It almost feels like to run for selectman, that you really need a law degree.
Oh, I don't have one.
Well, no.
You don't need a law degree, but you definitely need to be willing to educate yourself. Take the ethics trainings, which we do on an annual basis. There's a lot that goes into this job, and you know, there's a learning curve and there's a lot of information you have to cram into your head, and there's, just like anything else, there's rules to follow, and
And the town of Newbury hasn't had a very good reputation of following good ethical practices
this is in the past.
for years, years ago. And so this is kind of just trying to bring it, not only, I mean, this board acts ethically, but I think that we all agree to sign a code of ethics, I think speaks volumes. If we didn't want to behave that way, we would be looking like this. I don't want to sign that, and I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that, and that's not good. And
Also being emboldened to break ethics law or bend the rules. I think it maintains an air of class in the room between us and the public, and a way to hold people accountable that don't want to follow the rules or follow the ethics law in
And I
Massachusetts.
wish all boards and committees would adopt it, honestly. I think that it's
healthy.
It's very healthy.
In an age where people want to shine light on dark places and everyone should be heard
Disclosure.
and treated with class, this is where we're at.
Nothing against a code of ethics. Nothing at all. But I can very easily see in it be, a witch hunt.
I don't know how it would be.
so.
Really, it's up
Well,
to the
you know
state
what?
of
If it-
Massachusetts what the rules are.
Yeah, but you know what? If it was a witch hunt, so to speak, whoever was on that hunt is breaking the code of ethics. So you have to have something. You can't just make something up to go hunt somebody after. Somebody has to break an ethical standard.
Right, and it needs to be documented by a board member.
Okay.
It won't be just a bunch of hot air, which frankly, in years past, the way the town was run, there was a lot of it.
Can I bring up one more issue before we go? Last meeting we had, I sent an email out to Jim and Colby that the live broadcast went down again tonight. I would like to put on remedies on the next agenda, suspending PEG money the way it's supposed to be spent. Tonight,
We're already working on that.
Wait, can I just finish my statement?
Sure.
Tonight, the audio went down again, the video went down again. It's out.
Do we have
Yeah.
any way to substantiate that?
Oh,
It's being taped.
it's being
because
taped,
we-
but the live feed died again. This is, 18 years ago, we had it going live. And we're going backwards and like things, and I just requested to be on the agenda and it wasn't.
We're working on remedies and have been for the last week. This is step one. We're working on, do you want to?
Sure, I've reported it to the board on numerous occasions in the past. Our equipment is very old and very outdated. When we moved over here, we had anticipated a temporary move. Obviously, we're going to be here longer than we had expected. About a month ago, I asked the IT director to gather quotes for replacements of our equipment. We're getting 3 quotes. We've got 2. We're waiting for the 3rd quote to be in. We'll purchase all new equipment and we'll get it all installed. But as I had said, just be patient. It takes a little while to get it in. Everything's being taped and it will be broadcast. It's just not live right now.
Right. I think over the next few weeks, people see improvements to our productions. And it's important.
Yeah,
It's
it's very
moving.
important, okay, but, the other thing that, I was talking to people about this, and some of the things that we were talking about, maybe make this the town hall for good forever. And then, it's like, it would save the town some money, and then take the current building where the police are now, and make that a senior citizen. Because, and a lot of people were very receptive to that idea, because of the fact that right now, let me just finish, the senior citizens in the town is not HIPAA qualified. People are out in one part of the building playing a game, okay, or doing something, and other people there's not a complete, separation, so people talking about medical issues, okay, on the phone or with another person can be heard, so that's HIPAA totally wrong, okay, so we have to start considering, because Tracy was saying, the lease is coming up, and do we wanna go for 3 year, do we wanna go for 5 year? Okay, and I think it's something we should start discussing, the possibility.
Point of order. This is not on the agenda, it's something we
I
cannot
know, but I can't
discuss
get
right
anything
now.
in the agenda. I've tried for 3 weeks to 5 weeks now to put things on the agenda, and I'm not even,
The last thing you asked me to put on the agenda was fire discussion.
no, it wasn't.
The second thing was you wanted to,
When do we do emails?
you can do whatever you want, Mike.
But I'm not getting responses. I'm not getting responses from the chairman, so how do I get things on the agenda?
So, hold on a second, Mike, you gotta step back a minute, okay?
I am.
You're kind of like, this came out of left field to me. What are you saying? You're saying that you don't want to move forward with a town hall
I
renewal?
wanna talk about it.
This is not the
This
time
is
to
all,
talk
but
about
this
All right.
is already settled stuff. We've already settled it.
Maybe the people in the town don't think so.
Well, other people in the town might do
Okay.
think so.
All right, so,
So,
but still bringing back to the agenda things. If I don't get responses from you, how do I know it's even being considered?
The last thing you asked me to put on, and it was put on, was the fire staff and decision. The last thing I got out of you was that basically you dislike me and you wanna reorganize the board.
You were right, that was one of the things I said, but that's because you.
So we reorganized the board following election, which will be coming up in the spring.
All right, but also what you said here, this part here about the meetings wasn't responded to.
The meetings.
Also, the live broadcast went down again tonight. I would like to put the remedies on the next agenda. Spending PEG money is the way it's supposed to be spent.
Which is what we're working on.
Right,
It's
but
already being worked
You
on.
didn't respond to me. A simple yes, it's being worked on. It'd be nice, we're not gonna put it on the agenda because, but I'm getting no response. And with no response, I cannot figure out how to get things on the agenda. I'm done.
Okay, fair enough. Duly noted.
Thank you.
yes.
So, correspondence of Leslie.
Leslie Matthews, on Main Street, at your last meeting on the 24th, we were told that the town hall committee appointments would be made this evening.
Have we received any more?
None. Okay.
We
I
don't,
just have it in my notes, so
yeah,
I
we
was
don't-
just kinda looking forward.
we don't have anything to work with, frankly. I think some of the candidates for that have been rattled outside of this building by folks, and they're probably hesitant to sign up for it. I hate to say it. That's why at our last meeting, I said we have to be careful how hard we are on these volunteers because we're gonna have nobody that wants to help us, and we're seeing that now. When someone volunteers for a committee and they're being considered and they're getting razzed at the corner store, I don't blame them for backing away. I don't.
So how many
I think it's a
people,
reflection of how this process has gone and, people don't wanna line up to get executed.
so how many do we have, people have submitted to date?
Just one.
Yeah, well, one person does not make a committee.
All right, we'll send out the net again, the best of our ability. Jen
How
and others.
can we get people to, I haven't heard anything about people being harassed or anything, so I don't know.
No,
exactly what-
I think the way we could attract more people is, honestly, it's good to have spirited discussion, intelligent discussion, but when everyone gets so highly critical and charged and personal, it makes people shy away from helping with things like this. And I think that's what we're seeing right now, I really do. And it disappoints me, because I try to attract people to these things, and they say, well, I watch what you endure, why would I wanna get into that? And that's what's been breeding in this town the last couple of years, and I think it's very unfortunate.
Why don't we send out the net again to try to get people? So we need, what, 2 more?
Yeah.
So we'll cast that net again, if Jen can maybe not mention it in her article, and whatever you did before, Al, if you can send it out again.
Can I just get a clarification? When you're saying that the town hall issue is settled, you're saying that the committee is gonna advise, that advisory committee is gonna come back. You don't have funds allocated for that yet, correct?
No.
Right,
No.
so that piece is not done. So that if it went to town
Thi-
meeting and they voted it down,
this-
it doesn't happen, right?
Right, this,
Okay, I just wanna make sure I
yeah,
understood
this
that.
is an advisory committee that hopefully comes out the other end of it at the sunset with,
Within the recommendation.
the best way to proceed forward.
Any question?
Yes, sir.
I have a clarification in my head, 'cause I didn't understand what you were requesting really. Are the volunteers for this, for the town hall project? Okay,
Yes.
all right.
This is for basically a study committee to give us a recommendation. What's the best solution? Renovate the existing building, modify the existing building, tear down and build new, continue renting here, or maybe the question mark that nobody has thought of yet, so.
So, and so when you responded to Selectman Doyle, what you were saying was, we already have the process in place to determine whether or not we're gonna continue to rent here or not. Is that what you were saying?
I don't think
That
I
was
said
my
it was an
point.
issue.
That was my point, yes.
Yeah, so you're saying, it's not that it couldn't be the recommendation, it could be.
Who knows?
Yeah. Okay.
That's included in the charge.
Yeah, the
Stay-
charge.
this-
I wanna make sure I understand.
The idea of staying here in perpetuity is included in the charge. It's not precluded.
If there's no money allocated to rebuild town hall, if the town doesn't wanna do that, then we're not gonna
And
go.
you're not talking about it tonight because you already have the process in place. Got it, thank you.
Right.
Jen, thank you for clarifying that.
I gotta get it straight.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Any other citizens' concerns before we move on? So, we got a letter on 9/16 from Limerick Environmental Consulting, giving us an update on their salt marsh restoration work in the ditches, which has already been before the board. We got an email and attachments from Christina Eckert, Co-Executive Director, Merrimack River Watershed Council, regarding an act promoting awareness of sewage pollution in public waters. So, dear Board of Selectmen, as you know, the Merrimack River Watershed Council has been working with the Mass Legislature to craft legislation to fight combined sewer overflows in the Merrimack. The first step is legislation to notify communities when there is a CSO. H 3976, an act promoting awareness of sewage pollution in public waters, will require wastewater treatment facilities to notify the public when a CSO happens. Attached, please find information on this legislation. We are asking if you would sign on to the attached letter asking the House Ways and Means Chair to report the bill favorably out of committee. We also ask Speaker DeLeo to bring the bill to a vote. If you are willing to add your name to the list of signees, please use this link. If you have any questions, please contact me or Gabby Queenan at Mass Rivers Alliance. Thank you for your advocacy for the river. Sincerely, Christina Eckert. And what this will bring in, right off the top, is 2-hour warning within a sewage discharge, and that would be an email or text to subscribers that are on the warning list.
The town being one of the principals.
Correct.
I really like this.
Right.
I think we need to notify people.
And if I remember correctly, it looked like Georgetown had already signed on.
Yeah, so we have, just to clarify for everyone, when there are large rainfalls, sometimes sewer systems along the Merrimack River or the storm systems overflow and discharge water that is essentially untreated into our rivers.
To the tune of 3 billion gallons a year.
And so what the legislation is seeking to do is to create a notification so that if a stormwater system or a septic treatment plant does overflow, the affected communities will be notified. And so that's what the purpose of this legislation is. And so I move that we sign the letter encouraging this legislation. And yeah, so that's my movement.
I second it.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Sure.
Now we need to convince Manchester.
Yeah.
And there's several other.
Yeah. It's
That is
that
part of
the
the discussion.
the Merrimack winds through so many communities. It's interesting to be right at the end of the tailpipe.
I think it would be nice if somehow towns that don't comply should somehow be censored for more development. But I don't think we'll ever get that.
I think more and more of them will comply. It's not expensive.
Oh, in your dream.
We need to fix the sewage treatment plant so they can
There's no
hold the
money.
water.
Amazing how long they've gone.
All right. We get a letter from Superintendent Brian Forget regarding negotiations with Triton Regional Teachers Association.
Yeah, this was, I think, I don't know if I had a conversation with you or not, JR. I think I was mistaken when I said that you don't have to do anything. I think you do have to do something.
I have to appoint, correct.
Yeah.
Was this at the last meeting we're at that they asked for this to be done again?
They mentioned it at the last meeting.
Because isn't Neil the person that?
Well,
Well,
he
it's
has
that,
to appoint.
it's that time again to
That's what I
appoint.
thought, yep.
He either can go himself or he can appoint somebody.
Yep.
And then whoever goes to that meeting before the next Triton meeting, they vote then.
Yep.
Right, my thoughts are, if Neil's willing to go that route again, if everybody,
I think he's done a
unless I
good
hear
job.
Yeah.
an outcry.
He knows what he's doing.
Okay,
And are you gonna go to that meeting?
yes.
Okay.
I mean, unless you're raring to, I'd designate you to. Because I have something going on Friday night.
Well,
Is
if you
it
can't do it,
the
you have
week's
to
stacking up?
appoint. You have to appoint somebody that, I mean, you don't have to go.
No, I mean, if Damon was willing, I would, he
Uh,
could be the designee to
Is it-
appoint.
What night is it?
It's Thursday, I believe it's Thursday
Thursday
night.
night.
This Thursday?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah, I plan to be there, so I can
You're gonna be there anyway?
Yep.
Okay, so maybe, do we need to have a vote to,
have motion.
Motion to designate Damon.
So I don't know if we need to, because I think he just has to appoint them.
well, why don't we do it just in case?
All right.
Okay.
Do I need a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Oh, I guess I couldn't second that, not really, because
You might wanna redo
you might,
that
you might
vote
want to do
too.
that, redo that vote.
Mr. Chairman.
I
Okay,
have to recuse myself.
Alicia,
from
second
voting,
that
so
quick.
I'm going back,
I'll second it.
thanks.
okay,
Yeah,
any
so-
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Um,
We got a annual letter from GST Hingston Company regarding the fiscal year 2019 audit. Everything positive. Any meeting updates?
How about the letter?
We
Ah.
have two letters from this.
Letter.
Okay, Board of the Boss.
Order to Boston. Martha's gonna have to fill us in.
Okay,
Oh. It's a little surprise when we
Thanks for
got
catching
together
that.
last week because it's been pretty quiet for a while.
And it includes us.
It doesn't include us. But I had a conversation with Michael Iwanski this afternoon or this morning, about the letter. So what this is they're looking, it's part of the early environmental checklist for, this leg of the project. If you recall, the original project bordered Boston for our section was from Boxford, Georgetown, Newbury, and then Salisbury, skipping Newburyport because they're already, doing their own thing. So the last leg really is the North Georgetown, Newbury section of it. So this is part of the early environmental checklist. They're looking for primarily comments on the environmental aspects of the project right now. I got yesterday a set of the 25% design drawings as well as the 25% right-of-way drawings. We have until October 25th to provide comments, but this section goes right along the Parker River. It goes through priority habitat. There are some endangered species there, so there have been environmental concerns all along. One of the questions I actually had from Michael when I talked to him today was, my understanding was that DOT had asked them to do an alternative route analysis because of the environmental issues. I don't know if that's still on the table or not, but what I'd like to suggest is that we get our Border to Boston committee together, and maybe also everybody else who's listed here from Newbury, and have a session, look at the drawings and come up with our comment letter to get to that, if
Was
that
that
makes sense to you all.
Potential paved trail too?
Well, that's what DOT's plan is, asphalt paving. One of the things that we had recommended early on, actually Christine Wilkinson found this, was a resin-based paving, because Parker River Clean Water is very concerned about petroleum products on the river right there. And we had suggested that they might use that as a pilot project. It's proprietary, so they might have to go through some hoops, but, it might be worth bringing that up again, as well as our other concerns. We had also talked about narrowing it down from 10 feet to 8 feet there, because there is one section where there's water on both sides, and, there's really no leeway at all. But if that seems like a reasonable way to take a look at this, I can try to pull that together and find a time that's convenient for everybody. The drawings are downstairs on the table right next to Jen's cubicle, if anybody wants to take a look at them. They will be scheduling a 25% design public hearing on the project. I don't know if those 25% drawings will be revised based on any of these comments or not. Michael wasn't quite clear about that. But the date for that is still to be determined.
Now, does our share of funding or whatever come out of the tip or something? How does that get funded?
So, what's gonna happen now, we've just about used up the original funding that was allocated for the Four-Town project with our match. So going forward for the design costs, Mass DOT, it's gonna be on a reimbursement basis, so, Georgetown is the lead. We will get invoiced by Stantec and then get reimbursed by Mass DOT, for the design. Anything that is within the scope of the project right now. If we make any changes, if the town makes any changes to the design that incur additional costs, then we're gonna be on the hook for that.
Now, is that, you know, I know how busing went for regional schools. Are we assured of that?
Yes, I mean, that's been committed to, and then the
But
funding.
is that subject to funding at that time, or just like the busing and all that is?
No, that's already been allocated.
Okay,
and then
good,
the
comes out of the
funding-
highway side of things,
Right,
right?
the funding for construction will be federal funding coming from the additional gas tax or whatever.
Martha's been on this, guys, in case you, I mean, how long have you been on? I was on the original board too back then. How long ago was that?
I think 11 years.
Yeah, so
Just
I
about
can
since
remember
I
going down
started.
to, you know, Raleigh and things for meetings, and then, so, yeah, it's been on a long time.
The other thing we do wanna do eventually as part of this is try to look at the feasibility of developing an off-road, way to get from essentially Main Street or Church Street up to Scotland Road along either side of the Route 95 right of way. But we
And
need
that's
to-
smashing fish and wildlife land, right?
It is, yeah, and there's some wetlands and ledge along there, but, that's the other thing I was gonna talk to Stantec about, just to get a fee and see if maybe we could get some funding from somewhere, cause DOT had originally said they would pay for that, but they won't now with the reorganization of the project. So we have to get some funding for it.
Could we trade the parcel that's in the middle of Mass
Maybe.
to get us some wiggle room with the trail?
It's a good conversation. Creative thinking.
So, do you need anything actively from us besides our tacit approval of your course of action?
I don't think so at this point, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the update.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Martha.
Just so you're aware, Jer, I think you mentioned the Christine Eckers,
Mhm.
but not the Gabby Queenan, which is the same,
It's the same thing, right?
essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
But I just thought you should mention both.
Yeah, we also got an email pertaining to the same thing on
The sewer.
October 2nd, 2019 for the combined sewage overflows from Gabby Queenan, Policy Director, Massachusetts Rivers Alliance, regarding an act promoting awareness of sewage pollution in public waters.
Did they need anything from us as a town signing on to something?
Yes, but it's in that one letter.
Right, the first thing basically encompassed it, that's why I didn't get into every
The
page.
second one.
Any other meeting updates?
I've been doing a little work around the 40B project at Pearson and talking with Martha and Pete, the head of the planning board, about trying to find a way to develop some low-income housing so that we're not under the threat of 40B as constantly and as potentially destructively as the Pearson Drive project. And I've spoken to Bruce's office and Lenny in trying to find a way that we can get some housing into the town that actually works for the town and is beneficial to everyone as opposed to just a developer.
On the 40B sidewalk at Pearson Drive, I believed it was Mr. Bisbee from Mass Housing, is that correct? Right, I had a conversation with him, and whether it's factual or not, you know, this is kind of off the cuff, but I said to him, what's the best way to somewhat control 40B and make it more friendly? And he said he thought in a case like Newbury's, where we would struggle to ever meet our quota for 40B, which would in turn make it friendly. He said he thought the fastest way for us to meet the quota would be to put in an apartment building. Because as far as the state's concerned, units are units. And again, don't hold me to that as being the gospel, but that's what I took away from my conversation with him.
And that's what I
And-
took away from last time the 40B came, that we needed an apartment
Right.
building.
And the notion of an apartment building, I know might not be popular, it remains to be seen, but it would absolutely be the fastest way for the town to hit the quota and make 40Bs so they're not so intrusive and immune to our rules.
Yep, so we're gonna be meeting with Merrimack Valley Planning Commission members next Wednesday.
We're hoping to set something up with them to talk about it. We've had some other conversations on how we might actually start facilitating the process.
Just to explore it
Right.
and find a suitable place for the town to do something like that, so.
Didn't we identify that once? Didn't the planning board go through this
Well, we have
exercise
a-
once?
The housing production plan,
Yeah.
which identifies, about 8 sites, I think, that we thought would be appropriate for different kinds of housing. Route 1 would be a great target for some multifamily housing or possibly mixed-use housing. So, it's certainly a start, to try to figure out how to implement that. So part of the discussion with MVPC will be to, how to start implementing the housing production plan, and then how we might go about looking at some of those sites and, possibly moving something forward.
And it's tricky because the town can't build a housing development itself. And so it may be a partnership, we're trying to
That's where
figure
it
out.
would be friendly, maybe.
Yeah. So yeah, we're trying to figure it all out, but just thought I'd update you guys that have been looking at that.
Good.
Do you have an update on the Scotland Road project or
The Scotland.
the golf?
Eric has, in theory, been putting down seed. He's been sending his daily reports. I've not been out recently. He has not told us that things have moved far enough along that we need to come out and look at stuff.
So he's, okay.
I don't see many of the drainage things
No.
being
None of them
installed
have
down the
moved.
road, so they haven't moved. That's gonna be done first, in my opinion, right? So,
Looks like from the photograph, Joe Soroka sent some photographs, looks like they're sort of maybe halfway from the western side, towards the tees with the lawn and seed. They're working on doing the slopes around the wetland and stuff like that,
it's getting late.
Getting late.
Yeah. And with the heavy rain, who knows what could happen with the seed that's in there.
Any other updates?
Real quick, because I just think it's kind of significant. I didn't know if I was gonna make the meeting tonight. We had 15 students from Boston University with Duncan Fitzgerald, Alyssa Novak, and Zoe Hughes, which are professors, and Duncan's very well known as a coastal geologist, and it was kind of neat to see. Peter Fippen and I were kind of the mechanics running the boats and things. It was kind of neat to see 15 BU students, slipping in the mud and everything else, but trying to get an idea of what is causing the erosion on our marsh banks. Anyone that goes out in a boat realizes that we're losing great chunks of marsh. And it's easy to say, some people in Maine say it's green crabs, other people say it's boat wakes, but it's really a lot of a culmination of a lot of things. So they're not only taking core samples, but they have this long rod. This was new to me, and I've been out there quite a bit. This was new to me. A long rod at so many meters would go into the mud, and it had like 4 little veins on it, and there would be a gauge, and they'd twist it, and that told them the resistance of the mud,
Essentially torque measure.
and it was new to me,
Yeah.
and I've been out there a lot, so, but the kids really did a good job. It was kind of wild to see. And ultimately, when that's done, Duncan does a lot for our town and other towns in this area. This happened to be in Essex, but, we're still working hard on trying to understand the dynamics of our marsh, because it is our best buffer for storm drains. So,
Okay, any other meeting updates? Do we have minutes? Okay, do we have warrants?
Yes.
Motion to sign warrants.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.